Hello and welcome back to On Air with Dr. Pete. I'm your host, Dr. Pete Economo. And well, I have a pretty cool guest today because this is a friend. I guess I have to call her a former colleague. Sad. Not really. She'll always be a friend and a colleague. Dr. Shireen Rizvi is here today. Dr. Rizvi is a licensed clinical psychologist. She's board certified in dialectical behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which that's where we first met. And she's a rock star in that world. She spent 25 years conducting research and training in DBT. In early years, she was mentored by Marsha Linehan, Dr. Marsha Linehan at Washington, the developer of DBT. So that is pretty amazing mentorship. And she's passed that on in the family tree to amazing graduate students who are doing great stuff. And Shireen, friend, colleague, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Do you remember when we first met?
I don't remember when we first met, but I do have memories of talking to you about the Rutgers job when I was in a car in New York City, parking somewhere in the West Village.
Where were you going?
I have that memory for some reason. I have no idea where I was going, but I do remember talking to you and encouraging you to apply and to come. Maybe you had already been offered and were considering coming. I think so. Yeah. I think that's what we were talking about. But when did we first meet?
Well, okay, by the way, a job that you knew nothing about because nobody knew anything.
True. But I knew that I wanted you to come and be close to me. How's that?
I'll take that. So we first met at the New Jersey ACBS, which I was forming with Erica Miller. And so we brought you in to do a DBT talk on shame. And does that sound about right? And it was in a chocolate store.
Oh yes, now I remember. What year was that? Do you think?
I don't remember.
That was the best. We talked in a chocolate store, and then we got chocolates afterwards.
We got chocolate. Yeah, Erica knows how to do a good presentation and conference.
Yes.
Shout out to Erica. So that's where we first met.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember that, and. Because the chocolate and shame, and it was just lovely. And so I'll tell our listeners that the reason I was at the introduction saying that you're a former colleague, because yes, you were one of the reasons I accepted the job. And you recently made some changes, which is, I guess we'll talk about, which is super exciting for you. So share about your background first, though, because obviously Rutgers, you were there for what, 18 years?
15
years. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So tell everyone about that background.
About my time at Rutgers. So, well, before that, I will say that, thank you for the very kind introduction. I did do my graduate program with Marsha Linehan at the University of Washington. And as a, PhD student in clinical psychology, I was really raised in this. When I say raised, I mean in the culture of academia, with the idea being that a department of psychology, tenure track, research job is what you need to do. And in many ways, I wanted to do that because I wanted to emulate what Marsha had done so successfully. And so I first got a job at the New School of Social Research in New York City for a couple of years 3 years before moving to Rutgers, where I was professor in the Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology for 15 years. And there, I actually really got to do what I wanted to do, which was in large part to mirror my training experiences. So when I learned from Marsha, she had a training clinic where she actually would, the lore is, and whether, maybe this is 50% true, but the lore is she would call the inpatient units nearby in Seattle and say, send us the worst of the worst, your hardest people, and then give them to her students. So she had a trial by fire approach. And then I wanted to do that for Rutgers students. And so I started my own clinic. We called it DBT RU. I've trained dozens of students through there that are now all throughout the world doing good things.
Literally throughout the world, just so people know, because they move on, and that's really amazing. And so I don't know if I gave that enough of an emphasis in the opening about Washington, because that was, it is such a tremendous program, and obviously having her as your mentor You also, another thing that we connected on was that you were classmates with Jonathan Fader there. Isn't that true?
That is true. Yes.
Were you
Jonathan and
above
I
or
were very
wait,
good
was he
friends.
ahead of you or about? I
No,
forget.
same year. Same year.
You
Yeah.
guys came in together.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
And
so
we
we got
spent most Friday nights together in the library doing stats homework. Very exciting.
very exciting. Yeah. And so I guess how did people choose if they went to like study with Marcia or not, or you knew that you wanted to go there to do that?
I wasn't sure actually at the time when I was applying for grad school. I had been working in a lab, a research lab on eating disorders and the development and application of cognitive behavioral therapies for eating disorders. And so when I applied to grad school, I actually applied to all, when you're in this type of program, you apply to work with a particular faculty member. So
Right.
I applied to work with all faculty at universities that were doing eating disorders research, with one exception, and that was Marcia.
Interesting. And what made you choose her then at that exception then?
I
Because she probably
thought it
wasn't
would
as
be.
known then, right?
It's interesting because this was 1998. Her book had
Just
come
came
out
out,
in
yeah.
'93, but
Yeah.
still, I think it was not what it is now for sure.
No. Yeah.
And actually, I think that's what made me appealing to her as a student, because the research lab that I was working in at Stanford on eating disorders had a faculty member named Christy Telch, who was actually the first to adapt DBT skills for eating disorders and
Oh,
got
beautiful.
research. So I worked on that study. And so when I applied to grad school, I could tell Marcia I've had some exposure to DBT and DBT research. And at that time, there weren't many people in
Right.
my position who could say that. Right.
That was very West Coast, yeah. I would say DBT was more popular on the West Coast, and it took some time to get onto the East Coast.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
Right. And I actually say you and maybe like two other people are probably the reason it got to the East Coast in a heavy kind of way.
Well, that's kind, but I think there's a lot of us. It's an army. It's an army.
It's an army. Well, just for the record, like this is sort of how all of our lunches have gone historically. In our, I've said I should be Shireen's PR, and right. I mean,
yes,
fault me for that.
I hire you immediately.
Yeah, because we got to promote. The other thing that traditional researchers don't do well is okay, I'm going to say this. Promote them in a way that is digestible for others. Like, I think we'll promote ourselves because we self-promote, and it's sort of like this vacuum, and I can say that, and I think you could say that now that you're out of it. But yours is like, it's genuine because the work that who is going to hospitals to take the most difficult patients to fix? Who's doing that? Most people are... Yeah. Myself, like, I'm in sports. It's cute. It's sexy. Like, we're not trying to take like severe pathology. Your work. So let's break that down for listeners. Like, how would you most simply kind of describe DBT to listeners if they don't know what it is?
Yeah, well, just building upon what you were starting to talk about, is that when Marcia developed this treatment, what it came out of her attempting to apply what we might call standard cognitive behavioral therapy to a population that had not had CBT before. And that population was chronically suicidal and self-injuring women at the time who met criteria for borderline personality disorder. And all the early studies, research, in fact, the treatment manual says borderline personality disorder on it. That was the population of interest, because she really wanted to treat people that for whom there was no evidence-based treatment.
Right.
And in fact, most people thought they couldn't improve, and that was it. Right. So she developed DBT after her experiences of seeing that standard cognitive behavioral therapy didn't work as well with this population. She wanted to keep the essence of CBT, obviously tried and true evidence-based approaches to mental health problems, but realized that there were some limitations. So one limitation was she started to go in and really emphasize change. You have all of these problems. We got to work on changing your life and changing all of your problems and figuring out how your thoughts contribute to this and your behaviors, etc. And when she did that, the people that she was treating had actually a very strong negative reaction. They were basically like, how could you possibly suggest that I can change this? If you
Right.
knew how hard this was, if you knew how much pain I was in, if you knew how long I've had these problems, you would never suggest that I could easily change it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could have changed it, I would have changed it myself a long time
Yeah.
ago, right?
Yeah.
So then she realized that what she needed to do was emphasize and incorporate a focus on validation
Mm-hmm.
and acceptance.
Yep.
Like, actually, everything is perfect as it is. Of course, you are in pain and you're suffering given everything that has happened to you and your learning
Mm-hmm.
history and your biology and all of that. So she started to do that, a lot of heavy validation and acceptance. And when she kind of leaned too much on that, what she found was there was a reaction to that too, which
Of
is,
course. Yeah.
okay, you understand me, but if you really understood me, you would realize I'm in hell and you would try to get me out of it,
Out of hell.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the notion of dialectics came in, which is ultimately striving to balance and to integrate change and acceptance.
Yeah. Did she use the word? I don't want to talk too much about her because we're here to talk about you. But I know as a Zen practitioner that that's a lot of also that influenced the modalities.
Yeah.
Did you hear a lot about Zen in your graduate training?
Oh, for sure, because she
Okay.
was actually a Zen student. She
Yes. Yeah.
was going to retreats at least twice a year. Her own
Yeah.
experiences with Zen informed her development of the treatment.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we did
Yeah.
mindfulness at every meeting. It
Yeah.
was the culture there.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool to hear. Because I think you know that about that. I'm a Zen teacher as well, and so like understanding that, but it's very important to keep them separate. I think at least like my Zen teacher is also he's a PhD in psychoanalysis. I don't think they do that anymore, but that's his PhD. And so he'll always say like they're so different, and I'm like, well, suffering is suffering; it's universal, and that's sort of at the foundation of DBT too. Like, how do we help people alleviate suffering by understanding the dialectics that we all live in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to radical acceptance then, because I want to hear you as the expert kind of describe that, because that's a big piece of it, and you just beautifully articulated that around the idea of the dialectic. So explain radical acceptance for listeners.
Sure. So radical acceptance is integral to the delivery of DBT as a therapist, and it is also a skill that we teach our clients to learn and practice, right? Along with many other skills, which we'll probably talk about. But radical acceptance as a skill is, of course, one of the most challenging, I think, for people, because what it is telling us to do is to completely, totally, radically accept this one moment or this situation exactly as it is.
Mm.
And even sometimes just saying that and hearing that, like people are like, no, I refuse, right? And that's the reaction that often comes up, because actually so much of the time we don't realize it, but we're rejecting reality.
Yeah. Right. What's in front of you? What just came to mind is like, do you have like, what's your top 2 favorite skills in DBT?
I would probably say, well, favorite in terms of what I use most often. And this has evolved over time, because I do think that there's like almost developmental progression. But for me, my top 2 now are radical acceptance and mindfulness of current emotion.
I love
learning to just sit and be mindful of your emotion without acting on it.
So as you were describing radical acceptance, I was like, I wonder if this is her favorite. That's where that thought came from. I was like, yeah.
Well, it's so critical, I feel like, because it actually is, we talk about this in the book when I teach. It's radical acceptance is for when life is not going the way you want it to go, which is pretty much all the time, right? Some aspect of our life, we might be generally content or happy, but there's always something we're not.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we're not happy or content. We're upset with the way the world is. We're upset with how another person behaves. We're upset with ourselves and what we're like. So there's basically, it's a constant practice, radical acceptance, to say this is exactly as it is.
Yeah. So now you are the director of psychology training and director of DBT services and research. So tell us about your new role, and what's good about it, what's challenging.
Yes, so I'm now those things at Montefiore Medical Center in the Bronx. This was, actually in a way I can loop it back to the DBT skills because I was at a point where I had been, at Rutgers for 15 years. It contributed so much to my career. I mean, I would not be where I am today without the experiences and support and research and students and all the stuff I did when I was there. So for a long time, it was exactly what I needed and wanted. And then I started to notice that I was having emotions. And this is not particular to where, but just in general. And I think this happens to a lot of people, like just a dissatisfaction, right? And I realized after trying to fight it for a couple of years, actually, that my way of what I needed to radically accept was that I was no longer content in the job that I was in, and that I was really craving novelty and something new. And so that was a radical acceptance moment, which led me then to make changes, right? So people think that radical acceptance means you just like passively say, oh, everything is shit and I accept it and then I don't do anything. But actually in that moment, like that's a great example of how radical acceptance, actually really acknowledging and accepting, oh, I'm not happy in my job right now, led me to make a wise decision. Let me look for something else that I feel like will meet me where I am right now.
So another skill we'll give to listeners, since you just mentioned the wise decision, so wise mind. That's always been one of my favorites.
Yeah. Why is it your favorite?
Well, I guess it's like the Zen part about it, because for me, so in Zen we call it middle path, and you're trying, and so to me it's there's like I'll say there's three sides to a coin. Most people say there's two sides and kind of living in that dialectic. And it's like, no, you could take a nickel and very easily stand it up along the circumference, and that's what, to me, that's what DBT is. That's what well-being is. That's what this is. So how would you describe why is wise mind not on your top two?
Oh, well, because you forced me to pick two. So I had to pick two. But if you asked me on any other day, who knows what I would say,
it's
right?
True, yeah.
Wise mind refers to, in DBT language, it's another skill that we practice as therapists, that we teach clients, is to say that we want to try to get into a place or a state of mind where we feel centered, kind of at peace more often. Right. And that's what we call wise mind. And wise mind is the integration of these two other states of mind, or the middle path, if you will, between these two other states of mind that we refer to as emotion mind on the one hand and reasonable mind on the other hand. And the idea is that a lot of the problems that we experience, or the behaviors that cause problems for us, is because we're actually in one of two extremes. We're an emotion mind where our emotions are controlling what we do, right? Or we're in reasonable mind where we're discounting all emotions and we're just like going through the motions of something in a very logical way. And both of those have their places. Like, we're not saying that those are bad to be in. However, they often miss important information when we are too much in either extreme. And that's why we strive to find that place where we can say, we can actually ask ourselves, what's the wise thing to do here in any moment? And that will often elicit an answer that might be different than what you were thinking.
And I could say that I've observed you be that way. Like, you live that, you lead by that, you're a colleague like that. I've always enjoyed watching you, because I was in emotion mind for a while, for the last few years together, and just to watch you kind of navigate that. And I love that you shared that this change for you in career was your own radical acceptance, and to highlight that it doesn't mean you stay there. Every athlete I work with is like, I'm not radically accepting this. This is dumb. I want to get somewhere else. You can't get there until you accept it.
Yeah, that's great.
So talked about the book, because this is like super cool. It just came out this month, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the book is called
Real Skills for Real Life.
Yes. Real skills for real life, a DBT guide for navigating stress, emotions, and relatitions. I had to take a peek at it because I forgot what it was. I wanted to make sure I got it right.
It's everything after the colon.
The co-author of this book with me is actually Jesse Finkelstein, who was a student of mine at Rutgers. What is amazing about Jesse, and well, he's amazing in many ways, but psychology for him was a second career. His first career was in graphic design and user experience. And he took a class with me. I'll get to the book eventually, but he took a class with me, and he had come into grad school thinking that he was going to go down the road of becoming a psychodynamic therapist.
Until he met you.
That's exactly right. And I'm not, by the way, he would say that, and I've heard him say that a million times, so I'm not making this up, that I, in my classes on the foundations of CBT and then DBT, it really changed him and what he wanted to do. And he is now an amazing therapist. What he brought, so I taught him a lot. He taught me so much because one of the things that he has brought to the table is saying something that I think we all know, but don't know how to address, which is that we are terrible. Psychologists and treatment researchers are terrible at marketing, at making our stuff engaging and interesting. And so everybody knows about pharmaceuticals, everybody has heard Prozac and they might not take it, but they've heard of it. Sure. How many people have heard of CBT or DBT? A much smaller percentage, right?
Yeah.
So we started collaborating on a couple of things. The first thing that we collaborated on was back in 2020 when it was COVID. We got a grant to help to do some research on helping undergrad students during COVID.
Yeah.
A cat is making an appearance.
Is that Jimmy?
But that's Jimmy. Yeah, he's on my lap, but then he just stuck his head up, and now he's gonna mess with the microphone. Okay,
that's perfect.
So, so we got money to do a small research study to provide coping skills to undergrads who were dealing with the effects of COVID and being at home and not being on campus. And as part of that research, what we did was we made 14 animated videos that were 5 minutes or less teaching DBT skills. And Jesse did all the animations. They were amazing. So we did the study. And then after the study was done, I was like, why the hell not? Let's put this on YouTube and make it freely available for people. Yeah. And I have just been shocked. And actually, this is the only thing that impresses my children about my job, which is it's popular. Like we have 2.7 million views, I think, across all the videos. They've been translated to different languages. So if people want to see it, they can go to YouTube. The channel is DBTRU.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Oh, great. So then after that, realizing the success of that, we started to talk about what else could we do to make these skills more accessible. Yeah. And we decided to write this book. So now I finally got to the book. The book, I think, is, there is a skills manual that goes with DBT that Marcia obviously wrote. It is 225 handouts and worksheets. It is amazing. It is an amazing encyclopedia. We are not intending our book to replace that. Right. And the feedback we get from a lot of people is that it's very dense, very hard to understand. And it was never meant for people who are not in DBT therapy. Right. So if you were not in DBT therapy, but you wanted to learn the DBT skills, there's not a lot of options for you.
Right. That's right.
So that's why we wrote this book. And the book is really designed to be user friendly. There's illustrations, there's how-to, there's
so is it 26 DBT skills? Is that
we took 26 of the skills, which I think are like pretty much the core skills that you would get in a standard DBT program. Yeah. And we taught it in ways that like you don't have to have any experience with DBT to pick it up and learn. And what we're hearing so far, because people have gotten some advanced copies and talked about it, is that therapists are liking it because it gives them different ways to think about and teach the skills. They're also seeing, oh, this is going to be great for my clients who want to, know more about DBT. But really, again, just saying, we were really hoping that anyone could pick up this book and learn more about DBT skills.
Right, because you don't have to be borderline or an eating disorder to use DBT, and I think that's what I'm hearing you say in this, because it is. By the way, she's drinking from a mug that says "World's Most Okayest Mom." Or world's okayest mom. So that's how wise and middle path we are.
This is dialectical right here.
Yes, we're just okay, and that's okay. And by the
we're
way,
the okayest.
We're the okayest. You have one other thing that your kids are really proud of, is that you, I can get them tickets any game that they want to go to.
Yes, they love Dr. Pete for not at all selfish reasons.
for sports events, and I love spoiling people that like to be at the venues and the events. So it is my pleasure. Yeah. So I love this book. I thank you for sending an advance copy, and just to look, and it's digestible, and thank you for doing that, because that's what we need. I think the adolescent manual, I thought, did that for some ways, for the world, just to like break it down a little bit. And when you work with these different groups, you have to think about, how do I take these abstract ideas? Because Zen is very abstract. The foundation of DBT is abstract. So how do I make it? And I think that's what you both did here. So it's super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, so tell us, where people can find this, and a little, if they want to get, if they need treatment or anything like that, where would you send people to?
Well, so the book is available at Guilford Press or Amazon or anywhere else I think you can order books starting now.
Yeah.
My website, which has a link to various resources that I've developed, is ShireenRizvi.com. And the YouTube videos are the channel DBT RU. If you are looking for a DBT therapist, this is, of course, more complicated than what I just rattled off, because there's a lot of therapists who have learned some things about DBT.
Yep.
There are fewer therapists who do what I call DBT by the book.
Yes.
And depending on how severe your problems are and what you're looking for, it's important for anybody who's seeking out therapy to know what they need and to ask the right questions. So I do tell people, when they're looking for DBT therapists, to ask the therapist, do you do the full model of DBT? Do you only do parts of DBT? And if only parts, what parts do you do? To really try to ask questions about how to find out how close what they're doing is to the manual.
Really good advice, and said well, and it's important to know that, because there's someone out there for everyone. So Shireen, Dr. Rizvi, thank you so much for being here, and for blessing us with your time and with this wonderful book.
Thank you. It was so fun to talk with you.
All right. You're an inspiration, and I wish you continued success in this book. So thank you for listening at home. You'll have all those links in the show notes, and we will be back next week. Until then, spread a little kindness and stay well.